Here's what's coming up on today's show.
George Nichols, who's our president, who spent 18 years in the C-suite at New York Life, he likes to say that we're a 98-year-old startup. We're always looking for ways to uplift the profession because if we do that well, we live out our mission, which is really to benefit society.
This is the Retire Happy podcast with John Amarino, a fiduciary financial advisor at Securus Financial in the San Diego area, and Thomas O'Connell, president of International Financial Advisory Group, Inc. in Parsippany, New Jersey. Together, they'll be keeping retirement happy from coast to coast.
Welcome back to another episode of the Retire Happy podcast. I'm your host on the West Coast, John Amarino, and I am joined by my esteemed co-host on the East Coast and great friend of more than a decade, Mr. Tom O'Connell. Tommy, how you doing, buddy?
I'm great, John. How are you? Good.
We're doing good.
Again.
Good. It's a nice, crisp 85-degree November day here in San Diego.
Well, I don't feel bad that it's cold out there because it's a lot colder here on the East Coast. Glad that the baseball season is over because I can't.
Yeah, you and me both.
The Dodgers.
Yeah, the nightmare of the Dodgers. Listen, San Diego sports, it is what it is. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. So the only other World Series we have is watching the Dodgers lose, and they just somehow didn't lose this year. Should have lost, didn't lose. But
yeah, shoulda, coulda.
Yeah. So, well, folks, today's podcast, Tom and I have spent the last couple of years now, over 100 episodes, doing what? Educating. And, we believe that education is the key to making good financial decisions. But how much education is your advisor that you're potentially seeing? And is that education actually geared for your specific needs? So today we have a phenomenal host. He's from the American College, which is, as Tommy would put it, the Harvard of the financial service education world. He's the senior vice president and chief marketing and strategy office at the college. And Jared Trexler is his name. He has been all over the place. He's worked for a $7 billion private wealth manager firm, multifamily office, and of course he has worked for everybody's favorite IRA expert and our return guest, Ed Slott. And we are extremely honored to have Mr. Jared Trexler to come talk to us about the importance of your advisor being educated. So without further ado, Mr. Jared Trexler.
And today's guest, the Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing and Strategy Officer at the American College of Financial Services, it's Jared Trexler.
John, Tom, great to be with you both to talk a little bit about lifelong learning and the connectivity with the advisor and what he or she knows and how that helps the consumer.
Glad to have you, Jared. I've known Jared before he had gray hair and children, before he was married. I think he was you were fresh out of college, I think, when you were working with Ed Slott when we first met, 20 years ago now?
Yeah, I was fresh out of college, and Penn State football was just as bad then as they are now. So everything comes full circle.
Yeah, right. That's funny. I can't say much because, New Jersey has Rutgers, and they've never been good.
Well, there you go. There's one team Penn State can be above in the Big Ten this year.
Well, and we have San Diego State, which, we built a 30,000 capacity stadium for, and they have like 9,000 season ticket. It's Texas football is bigger. So I digress about San Diego sports. So, Jared, well, thanks for coming on. The American College is, Tom, give us your list of designations. What do you have there? What course?
So I'm RICP, AEP. There's another one in there that I can't remember.
Called dementia.
Those are the ones that
Lifelong learning. It's called lifelong learning.
Lifelong learning. Yeah.
He's such a book of knowledge.
I've taken like the CLU classes and CHSC classes, but I never went on to take the test or anything like that. But And now we're going to talk about it in just a minute, but I'm looking at that new tax class to take as well.
As am I. And, Tommy, I think, it's just not having Jared on. We've talked to our clients in depth. We've taught and talked to prospective clients in depth, and we've talked to our listeners about our constant, and we really feed off each other. I mean, we are constantly pushing each other with advanced planning and learning. I have not done the American College. I am definitely looking at Jeffrey Levine's class because I've been a student of Jeffrey's stuff in the past with Holistic Plan. Before I really got to the American College, I was looking at Michael Kitsis's course and having the retirement management advisory and the CPWA courses under mine. The fact of the matter is both Tom and I are very dedicated to our specific niche and craft, and that's working with retirees. In my specific instance, I tell clients middle class millionaires who have done very well at accumulating, and now they have a bevy of other problems, just not just investments. And so, Jared, why don't you, if you don't mind, start off talking about the importance of specializing and having actually education? Because financial advisors, Tom, how many times we mentioned this? Is your financial advisor truly a retirement planner, or is he a college planner? Is he a jack of all trades?
Right.
Yeah, really good setup there. I would say if you look at any of the, it's called in the industry the alphabet soup. If you look at any of the designations that are from the college or from, the College for Financial Planning or Investments and Wealth Institute, where you got the RMA and the CPWA, it all comes down to as we look at what we've created, what we may create moving forward for the advisor, it's all with the end consumer in mind. And the college has done quite a bit of consumer research over the last several years. And loud and clear, we've heard two things from consumers year after year. One is they feel every advisor sounds the same. Every advisor says, well, I offer these 10 or 12 services, but how is it that every advisor could offer with the same level of competency and detail, the same 10 to 12 services? You don't see that in law, you don't see it in medicine or other professions. And if you tie to that, what consumers said is really what we want the designation to help us do is be just the first screening tool we could use when we're looking at a list of advisors that are within 50, 100 miles or whatever search tool they're using to look for an advisor that could say, okay, this is giving me an indication that this advisor has taken advanced training or has gone through significant relevant education that's relevant to my needs. And as we look today or look into the future, the value of specializations coming in, and I remember Ed Slott, Tom will remember this too, you may too, John, because Ed tends to use a lot of the same lines that still resonate today. He would say to advisors, the clients you want, the ones with significant assets, and with that comes significant complexity, they already have those assets. They've already accumulated and spent decades saving money. And that's where the hard work begins. And so many kind of generalist financial planners today are asset accumulators. It's like the ride up the escalator, but so many of the tax issues or pitfalls, so many of the irrevocable mistakes and decisions are occurring in now that 20, 30 gasp, even 40 years in retirement as longevity risk has become such a prevalent risk in retirement. That's where advisors can add so much value. That's where we feel that need for specialization comes in income planning and tax planning and estate planning and philanthropic planning. And that's where advisors we feel will add value today, tomorrow, 10 or 15 years from now, because a lot of those boomers, we talk about peak 65, a lot of those boomers, at least one, if there are two, a married couple, 65 years old, and both are healthy, it's a coin flip that one of them is going to live to 100. Recent nationwide data showed us that. So what does the next 30 years of their life look like, their financial future look like? And that's where we believe as the college, and I'm sure you both believe as well with your commitment to education, that's where an advisor, a specialist, can add a lot of value.
You hit it right on the head. Most people that are out there calling themselves an advisor are asset accumulators. And
there's nothing wrong with that.
No, it's not. But people have to know that that's what they are.
Yeah.
Right. I've been with Ed Slott I'm the second graduating class, and that's 20 plus years. And if there's only 2, 300, 400 people in that organization, second graduating class, there's maybe 30 of us left
Yeah.
after all that time, right? So how many people really are an IRA specialist if there's only 30 people? And in that first class, I think there's only about 5 or 6 left, maybe 10. Either they're retiring out, dying out, leaving the business, whatever it is. But if you only have 300 people in that type of organization, what kind of education are accumulators really taking or getting? And then providing to their clients. I guess it's kind of nasty, but I always say you can't swing a dead cat without hitting the financial advisor in this world.
Yeah, it's true. The
You know,
barrier to entry is low. And to
yeah,
like link on to what you said, John, too, there's nothing wrong with those who are like, I'm 43 years old. I meet with my advisor once a year. It's save as much as you can, put money in a Roth IRA, get some term insurance and those sorts of things. But I think it's a good example of like the person who got you here may not be the person who gets you there. And like the needs you have for an advisor when you're in your accumulating years, your working years, it's a very different skill set. You need an advisor that can navigate you through all that retirement is.
I'll use a bad analogy that I know we'll get letters about, but Aaron Boone has finally got the Yankees back to the playoffs, but he's never going to get them a World Series ring.
Yeah. I say that about my Steelers and Mike Tomlin. He hasn't had a losing season in 2 decades, but also hasn't won a playoff game
living in the
over a
past.
decade.
Well,
All
and
right.
I go back to what, are my original mentors and your original friends, then mentors, Tommy, the three mentors, Gary and Rodney and David, they used to say, hey, listen, there's a difference between your family practice doctor and a cardiologist. Your
Yeah.
family practice guy may be a great doctor. He's done well for you, but you're not going to him if you need open heart surgery. And when you were talking about all the designations in the programs, I talk a lot to my clients about every action has a reaction. And for a lot of I've seen this with probably the accumulator advisors, but I also see it with a lot of people. It's you make one decision, you think it's just a linear reaction. And especially in the retirement world, you make that one action, it can splinter off into seven or different planning reactions that are now an issue. If you're not considering your Roth IRAs in just the intricacies of that planning, you may be blowing up your IRMA taxes. You may be doing, a host of things. And how many people are actually thinking about their kids' tax brackets when they're doing beneficiary planning? And if you're not, then you're making the IRS the biggest beneficiary. And the one thing that has always stuck to me in my planning, because it's not just about investments, is what the late, great David Gaylor used to say. You income plan as if your client's going to live forever, and you estate plan as if they're going to die tomorrow. And is the accumulator going that deep?
Every decision is like that metaphoric pebble in the pond, right? It creates the ripples. And, one day one of those ripples will be a tidal wave. But so, Jared, let's talk about the depth of classes or certifications or
Yeah.
education that the school offers.
Yeah, absolutely. We like to say, Tom, that we are an educational and impact platform. We'll be 100 years old, we'll be a century old in 2027. George Nichols, who's our president, who spent 18 years in the C-suite at New York Life, he likes to say that we're a 98-year-old startup. We're always looking for ways to uplift the profession because if we do that well, we live out our mission, which is really to benefit society. So when we look at our lifelong learning platform, it starts with foundational programs like the CHFC. We're one of the largest providers of CFP education, the CLU, which is almost as old as the college and was really the first big planning designation in financial services when really a financial advisor was a life insurance agent. That was the financial advisor as the profession has matured over time. But then we look at these gaps facing the pre-retiree and retiree market, and that's really informed a lot of our more specialized courses the TPCP, which is the tax planning program we created with Jeff Levine, who's a professor of practice here at the college. We have a CAP program, which is our Chartered Advisor and Philanthropy program about developing philanthropic plans. We're the educational provider of the AEP that you mentioned earlier, the estate planning credential. We have a special needs credential for those that are working with special needs families. So you can see where the focus lies. It lies in complexity, and with complexity is depth. And I was at the Charles Schwab conference last week in Denver, and there were so many sessions around advisors and how they can best serve clients. And the research that came from Schwab is the same research, it parallels the research we did. Clients are demanding more one-stop services from their financial advisor. It used to be 10, 20 years ago, it was like everyone had this boatload of COIs and you would ship a client all over the place. Now, there are still certain things you want to have clients go to. You have relationships with CPAs or estate planning attorneys. But clients today are looking for services from their financial advisor. The more services you can offer as a financial advisor, the greater ability you're going to have to deliver that client value back to the client. And how do you deliver more of those services? With competence. Like you may be able to fake it till you make it a little bit and say, oh, I offer this service, and it kind of goes 1 inch deep. But when you get into some of the intricacies you both were talking about earlier, beneficiary planning, when to do a Roth conversion, some even more intricate things like 72T, and like how do I connect to an estate plan? What did Secure 2.0 or even the One Big Beautiful Bill? How does that impact the way I think about distribution planning and making my assets, last as long as I do? Those are only things specialists know. And I smiled, John. No one can see me smiling on the podcast, but I smiled when you gave that cardiologist example because that's the exact same one that we use at the college. And believe it or not, when we would sit down with these consumers for 30-minute interviews, that's the example they used of like, well, if I have a heart problem, I'm going to go to a cardiologist. Why is financial services not the same way? Generalists can solve 80% of your financial ailments. And in fact, some specialists are also generalists. You have your, a little about a lot, but you narrow in, we call it the T, right? You have this breadth of knowledge, then you go deep in the areas that really impact your clients. So I think the one thing I would say to consumers about the colleges programs is if you have a specific need, there is a college designation that meets that need. And that's really why the colleges started to go direct to consumer, because we want to educate consumers that not all advisors are the same. They believe that's true, but I think the three of us on this podcast know that's not true. And the more education we can do to consumers about those differences, it will make the profession better and it will deliver better outcomes to clients.
Yeah, one of the things we spoke about before we came on air was the CFP designation, right? And not that that's bad. It's a nice designation to have, but it's very generic in the advice that a CFP person is going to be giving out. It's not that T like you were just saying. It has some depth, but not a lot of depth.
Here's two good examples to that. Tax planning, it has a course on income tax planning. The TPCP then goes through tax planning and retirement, tax planning at death and special situations. So it goes deeper. Another really good example is retirement. RICP, as well as the RMA, John, that you have, that goes into actual income planning. CFP's retirement course is a plans course. 401k, 403bs, rollovers. It's not an income planning course. And I think that's a really big distinction because so many financial advisors today call themselves retirement planners. Not really retirement planners. That's just a nice way for them to market themselves so they can go to a bunch of consumers and try to roll over a bunch of company plans. But there's a really big distinction in our mind between retirement planners and those that are doing retirement planning. And it's important that I think consumers know that.
And I love that because through my education, I've been able to talk very deep with clients, who have wanted to come and claim Social Security as soon as they retired at 64, and have been able to talk to them about those levels of Social Security and then back it up with income planning software. But, it's funny because I've had this happen more than once where their rationalization is, well, my sisters or my friends advisor told them to claim Social Security as soon as possible. And, listen, I wasn't in that conversation, but how did they maximize their Social Security by doing that? Did they actually run an analysis? And how did they optimize their taxation? Because Social Security optimization is not only maximizing an income stream, it's also optimizing your taxation. So if they did that, then good. Or did they just do that because, hey, listen, we don't have to touch the assets?
I mean, it's interesting you say that. One of our professors, Michael Finca, very well-known retirement researcher here at the college, he did a survey last year with Ageist. Probably no surprise to the both of you. The one area where clients or the average consumer had the biggest gap between their perception and reality was how long they would live. A lot of these consumers have this, oh, I want to claim Social Security right away because otherwise, what if I die 2, 3, 4 years from now? And of course, there's a lot of what ifs in finance, but Michael, as well as you can imagine, a lot of economists, like the math around Social Security claiming is really clear. And if there's a way to put in a really solid potential income stream to supplement or mimic Social Security to allow you to delay that claiming until you're getting closer or at full benefit. But that's one of those kind of also behavioral issues that we talk a lot about. It links like the technical that you both know with how do you communicate that effectively and mitigate this behavioral tendency of clients of like, well, why would I give away that income stream for 5 years from now, and I may not even be around 5 years from now.
Or the government's going to go defunct on Social
Exactly.
Security.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one reason why Social Security classes are becoming much more prevalent amongst advisors, because it's not just, it's like Ed said, your IRA isn't just as simple as putting money into your 401k and then getting a paycheck when you're retired. And Social Security is not that simple either. I'll bet you the vast majority of people have no idea what IRMA means.
Yeah.
And they have no idea that as you're getting an inflation rider on your Social Security, so goes your cost on your Medicare, parts A and B and blah, blah, blah. So, I think what the American college does for the consumer is an invaluable service. I mean, you can't put a number on it when it comes to the baby boomers and the Gen X and the people coming behind it having enough money in retirement or having enough income in retirement and then being able to create generational wealth. I think what you guys do at that school, Jared, is just phenomenal. I mean, it's just, and I don't say that just because you're a guest. I take as many classes as I can. I love the stuff that you guys do.
Well, I appreciate that. And it embodies like the lifelong learning mentality that I think every advisor should have. Things are changing all the time. We've had two or three massive pieces of retirement legislation over the last half decade. You mentioned generational wealth. Like we talked a lot about people living longer, but then there's this generational wealth. I was on a call with Jean Chatzky last week, the former personal finance editor at the Today Show, and she said something really interesting. She does a lot of work with the Alliance for Lifetime Income. And she said, the biggest generational wealth transfer right now is horizontal, not vertical. So like the death in like all these assets moving to spouses and then all of the issues, the challenges, sometimes those spouses were not intimately involved with financial conversations and now they're like stepping into it with an advisor they may not know as well. That's an issue we're starting to tackle in a lot of our coursework too, whether it be in estate planning or legacy planning or just retirement planning in general. Is I think everyone fairly focuses on this BuzzFeed sort of headline of this massive generational wealth transfer to younger people. There's a pretty significant wealth transfer that's going on just from individuals that are, their spouse died.
And the creation of the second and third families too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's far more prevalent today than it was in our parents' day.
Yeah, great point.
And you mentioned the spouse dying. That's probably the singular biggest reason why the majority of my clients who do Roth conversions because they understand the widow tax. They understand that guarantee. That's huge. And you mentioned behavioral finance. The biggest thing that I've taken away, and Tommy has mentioned it because every course that I've taken or Tommy, we go back and we talk about, hey, did you know this? I mean, we're constantly, and I mentioned Tommy because he's old as dirt. Um, but what are you now? 30 years in the industry, Tom?
Over 30, 36.
I mean, 36 years, and he is a student of the game every day. And I've seen a lot of guys with even 20 years on. I'm good. I know everything.
Yeah.
They walk out of the conferences. They don't listen at the conferences. It's constantly evolving. And the one thing I didn't think about in my retirement planning, going back to that behavioral finance, was, and we've had the host on, we had one of my actual instructors on talking about just even the non-financial perils of retirement planning, the loss of identity,
Yeah.
the psychological toll of losing your spouse, the psychological toll of not having that purpose in life. You were a big C-suite guy, you were a chief of police, or you're watching your friends, your circle close in as those people die. And I think one of the biggest things that gets my clients is when I go, all right, what's your health goal this year? Well, what does that have to do with money? Well, if you don't have your health, you don't have your wealth. And getting back to, because I know in conversations with Tom, and I know as I'm a huge fan of the American college, and we talked about looking into that tax class. There's much more than just investments. And you talked about 80%. I'm a big 80-20 guy. Everybody wants to focus on investments, but that 20% that comes from the actual planning knowledge is what makes or breaks the peace of mind in retirement, in my opinion.
Yeah, and as you look into the future, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners are thinking about this too, we don't know how or when AI and advances in technology are going to disrupt not just the industry, but the engagement with the advisor. I'll tell you what the college believes there is exactly what you said. More on the relationship. Can you be a good relationship? People are throwing out relationship coach, behavioral counselor, behavioral therapist. How do you mitigate the worst financial tendencies that are inherent in all of us as humans, and mitigate them to keep you invested, to make sure you're not making mistakes, to keep you from, going insane when the market's, in some sort of corrective territory, and then the planning side. Because in the future, we've all seen articles. AI passed level 3 of the CFA exam. AI, there's talk about replacing people on Bloomberg desks because AI can do the work of but you know what AI can't do? Sit across from all of your listeners and explain the technical with empathy and understanding so they not only have buy-in and believe in the plan, but are embracing what it actually means for their financial lives. We are extremely bullish at the American College on the value of advisors as we move forward. But it may be just a little bit less on what the market's doing every day. It will still be important, and more on how do we navigate this complexity with you and be a behavioral coach to you in a way that you can live the financial future of your dreams.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a death in the family or some catastrophic event or even a really good event, right?
Yeah.
AI isn't going to be there
No.
to walk you through that. It's going
No.
to, it might come up with a cheat sheet of, hey, this happens, but it's like, okay, in what order do we do something, right?
Yeah.
Has the client had enough time to grieve or celebrate or whatever the case may be? Maybe I am really old, but I don't see AI being a big factor in what we do on a personal level. Can it go in and read the tax code a lot better than I can? Of course it can. All right. Silly not to think that. But it can't relate to my family or my friends or my clients.
When you're still going to have to check that, right, Tom? It may be able to read the tax code
True.
faster, but it still hallucinates a whole lot. We were at a meeting,
True.
a big former fintech executive of a large TAMP last month, big tech guys, lived his whole life in tech. And they asked him, they're like, what will AI change in the next 5 years? And he looked us all in the face and said, nothing. And he goes, here's why. Because you mentioned a good event happens. What if a small business owner has a massive liquidity event and AI hallucinates one out of every 10,000 times? A consumer, a 50, 60 year old consumer is not going to trust a computer with something as consequential as that, right? They want to sit across from a human being and have that relationship with people. Now, AI can do some good things. It will allow all of you as advisors to maybe spend more time with clients and like
Mhm.
automate some mid and back office administrative things. But for all of those listening who are the consumers, like the growth of AI is actually going to help the advisor, in my opinion, at least in the college's opinion, be able to spend even more time planning and talking with clients than in the past.
And
And
doing the
here,
things that we like, right? I mean, neither of us, John, I think I can speak for you. We don't like doing paperwork,
Yeah,
right?
no,
The administrations, not that we don't want to help people, right? But
sure.
we want to do what you just said, Jared. We want to sit with people. We want to, in time of need, we want to be able to hold their hand. In the good times, we want to be able to celebrate with them. We don't want to be sitting here filling out forms. And that's one of the things I do agree that AI will most definitely help us out.
yeah, I mean, I love the notes.
Yeah,
I have a note taking app, and I don't sit behind my desk anymore with my pad writing as fast as I can, and they're just looking at the top of my head. I pull up a chair across from them, and we just have a conversation, and it just allows for so much more connection, and that's important. And talking about AI and replacing the advisor, I don't think, you said it. You guys are a 98-year-old startup
yeah,
in educating advisors where technically if they're using AI, they could just get the answer the easy way. And
yeah,
something, my son's a big sports kid. He's a big baseball player. I tell him there was nothing easy about me or Tom being advisors that built successful practices from zero AUM. Did not take over any. It's blood, sweat, and tears, hard work. Anything that's hard is worth it. And you guys are doubling down with more education for advisors because you understand that the advisor is a necessary piece. And despite AI being able to give us the easy answer, it's teaching the advisor truly how the nuances of the game.
yeah. I mean, something, John, as you said it, the college would not be around today if we were just spitting out facts. If we were a school on theory, we believe we're an applied knowledge school. I think it's what helped Ed Slott stand out as well. AI can spit out the fact, but AI can't understand the nuance of how to apply that fact to a client situation. And I think that's what the college and some of the most successful educators in financial services have done really, really well, is they've taken a lot of very technical information and worked with an advisors on how to actually use it in the real world, how to communicate it in the real world, what client situations to use it in. And that's where like the true educators of this profession, in my opinion, have a leg up over at least the AI versions we see today. Because yes, they can spit out the facts in, 2.5 seconds, but can they actually apply it to a client situation? Again, mitigating those behavioral tendencies, understanding the familial history. I think that's what makes the college and the great educators you mentioned, you mentioned the three mentors, which bring me back to my early years in this profession too. It's what make those people so successful and so impactful is they're not just talking the data or the number. It's how do you actually apply it?
Yeah.
Now, speaking of educators, the school has done an outstanding job at bringing in experts in
Yeah.
all the fields. Now, we've mentioned Ed a couple of times on here. He's part of the American College Program. Another guest we've had on here, Don Graves, who
Yep.
I'll call the godfather of reverse mortgages,
Oh
Yeah.
boy,
right?
compliance.
And well,
You just got the show kicked off, Tom.
that's okay. We're not recommending them. We're just saying that he's the godfather of them. You thrown out a couple of other names, but why
Yeah.
you tell us about some of the,
Yeah.
Wade Fowd is another guy that both John and I
Yeah,
follow.
love Wade.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the experts that you folks have been able to get under your roof?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty impressive, like who's who list, a Hall of Fame. You mentioned Wade and Ed and Jeff and Don, Jamie Hopkins,
Jimmy Hopkins, yeah.
who's really well known in the industry. Michael Kitces is a professor in the tax planning program as well as the retirement income certified professional. Michael Finca is a really well established researcher. David Blanchett, who's the head of retirement research at PGIM and used to be at Morningstar, is an adjunct professor at the college. We like to say we have a great mix here of PhDs and CFPs, CHFCs, RICPs. It's what really makes us an applied knowledge school is you have those folks like Michael Finca, who's never been an advisor, but has worked with advisors for 30 years and has been on the academic side. And then the head of our CFP program used to manage a team of 80 at Guardian as a former managing director, right? So that's where I think we kind of meld together the academic side and I live the life of an advisor and I know how to talk the talk. We have a Horizons conference every year. It's a retirement focused conference. I say every year. Last year was the first year. It sold out. It's won some awards. It's next May. We'd love to have you two there if you want to join in Orlando. But what we heard from a lot of our attendees was the most impactful sessions were when you had those college PhDs sitting on a panel with actual advisors and they were melding theory or research with boots on the ground. This is how it really works with clients. And that's where you can draw out, the best sort of strategies. But yeah, we have a litany of professors and I'm proud to call them colleagues.
It's an impressive group for sure. But you're probably never going to find a group of academics that are held in such high esteem in any industry as the folks that you have.
And Jared, with that, I want to talk about one course. And you mentioned earlier, and Tom and I were talking to you both, or we were all talking about before because we both have interest in it. And you made a comment about lifelong planning in the evolving industry. And Tom and I have talked about this in length that the evolving industry right now, I believe one of the biggest is truly tax planning, not tax advice, not tax preparation, but tax planning. And I was at an APFA conference with Bob Keebler.
Yeah, Bob's great.
And Bob said, listen, make no doubt about it. If you're a financial advisor and you are not sharpening your sword with tax planning, you are doing your clients a major disservice because the tax planning world is shifting away from them and you are going to become the premier tax leader in that relationship. And so let's talk about, and I love Jeffrey Levine. I have attended many of his courses on the Kitces side. Let's talk about that tax planning course.
Yeah, absolutely. And first I echo everything Bob said. It goes back to what we talked a little bit earlier of like the client wants more services from you, the financial advisor. I think how you framed it of tax advice versus tax planning is really important too. We say with that TPCP program, which is the tax planning certified professional, that tax planning is financial planning. Every financial conversation or many that you're having with clients has tax implications. It's why I've always chuckled going back to my Ed Slot days when advisors are like, I don't touch tax planning. Well, do you recommend a Roth conversion? Because you're doing tax planning. And so advisors may just not like to say they're doing tax planning, but advisors are doing tax planning every single day. Something that Michael Kitts has told me, which is so true. If advisors are struggling to be able to communicate value to their clients, what more value can you communicate to a consumer or client of, see this tax strategy we just deployed? It saved you X amount of dollars. A consumer is going to be like, well, now I know why I pay you. Like that, I mean, that's immense ROI. So tax planning is the future. I mean, the present and the future. I agree with Bob. I think the financial advisor is going to be the lead quarterback of tax planning conversations moving forward. It's a 3-course program. It goes through everything from accumulation, income tax issues to distribution, retirement tax issues to issues at death. It is a who's who of some of those faculty we talked about earlier are all members of that program, including Alan Gassman, who's a really well-renowned estate planning attorney. And clients are demanding it. It's the number one service. Herbers and Company did research last year. The number one service clients with at least 250,000 of investable assets want from their financial advisor is tax planning. And it boggles my mind We're not there yet, but I think we're getting close. It boggles my mind that many large advisory firms still shield themselves from it. And I think they're about to see a wave going to those who are more comfortable, or their compliance is more comfortable, or whatever it may be. The philosophy of the firm is different, but tax planning is financial planning, and that's why it's been so well received by our advisory student base. It's why the second commercial that we have going out to clients next May is using that TPCP as an example of specialization, like someone who can help deliver tax planning value. And the last thing I'd say for the consumer listening of like, well, then what's going to be the difference between a TPCP and a CPA, which I may know a little bit better, or an EA? And Jeff describes it really well. He's like, well, an EA can represent you in front of the IRS, but EAs and CPAs are history teachers. Nothing wrong with that, but they're tax compliance designations or certifications. TPCP is a tax planning certification. CPAs look backwards. TPCPs look forwards, and how we can help you have the lowest lifetime tax bill over the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years.
And with $38 trillion of debt and $300 trillion of unfunded government liabilities just on a federal level,
Yeah.
taxes is the only thing that, that's out there that's going to ever pay for any of this stuff. So you're obligated to pay what you owe, but you're not obligated to pay more than what you have to, right?
Right.
And that's what that class is all about.
Uncle Sam is not your uncle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what I mean, it's one of the two certainties in life right now, right? And I love the fact that you talked about the big firms not, doing the tax plan. Yeah, we don't do tax planning because, and you mentioned the Roth conversion. I even take it a step further. It was like, hey, well, everything they invest you in
Yeah.
has a taxable it's growing your IRA, or it's growing your Roth IRA, or they're triggering phantom capital gains.
Yeah.
And you'd mentioned that they're shielding the big firms, they want to shield their, whether it's the liability or whatnot. But I have gathered more clients from these big firms because the tax mantra was, we don't do tax planning, and if you're paying more in taxes, I'm doing my job. And these clients are getting triggered $50,000 in capital gains. Now I got no problem if the client says, hey, listen, do your short-term trades, whatnot, give me that rate of return. But none of that conversation never happened. It was just, I'm making you more money, but are you actually netting at the end of the day that bigger return? So that was just, when you said those, that just resonated because it's such a true statement.
And it's what you keep that counts. It's what, like, that's what you're right. It's what you keep after taxes that counts. And I'm sure over this 30-minute conversation, Tom, you've realized how many Ed Slott isms are ingrained in my head.
It's funny because I keep saying the same things in my head that because we were trained the same way, right?
Yeah.
But not just in this conversation, though. I hear it across the financial industry. More people that are using the Ed Slott isms or the Tom Hegna isms or the Joe Jordan, right? Or Van Miller. All
Yeah.
these guys that are huge in this industry that have really paved the way for a lot of what all of us are capable of doing.
It's so true.
Yeah.
We owe a huge debt of gratitude to all those guys.
Absolutely. Ties to the lifelong learning.
Right.
Yeah. And Tommy, I think there's only one other thing that I think we just got to just sign up for that tax plan course together and kill it.
I know. That's a goal for 2026.
PPCP's after your name. I'd love it.
No, you guys already have what, one or two graduating classes in that?
Yeah. We've had 2 graduating classes. Over 2,800 advisors in the first 10 months have enrolled in the program. They haven't all completed yet, but all enrolled.
Wow. That's huge. That may not sound like a lot to the general public, but us in the know, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Well, and you know what I equated to the generalist versus specialist? There are 300,000 financial advisors registered with the SEC. but there's not going to be 300,000
That's
TPCPs because
1% right there.
yeah, that's not the way they're wired. The exclusivity of specialists are, again, any good profession, the maturation of any good profession is you have a whole bunch of generalists and then it tightens down as you get more specialized.
And it goes back again to the advisor's determination to be the tip of the spear.
That's right.
And again, Tom and I and a couple other advisors, we push each other. We're all part of, that core group of you don't just stop because we see it, Tommy. How often do we see it at conferences where the guys will come in, they'll get their breakfast, and you'll see them at lunch. Well, why are
Right.
you here?
Yeah.
Why are you here?
So
You
they can get
you
away from
say
the
one
family.
thing, you say one thing, you do the other. It gets back to the fact of the matter that it's hard to have your own business. It's hard to manage the retirements of a lot of people and then carve out the time and the effort to learn more. And again, to Tom's credit, and to sit there after 30 years and say, well, I pretty much know everything that I'm going to know. No, to keep pushing forward because it's an ever evolving industry. And, again, like I said earlier, there's the easy way and the hard way. And not saying that this is a bad thing, but there's simply guys out there and say, listen, I'm gonna put them in my investment models, and what happens happens, or I'm just gonna give sell an annuity. That's my niche, and I'm just gonna move on to the next one, and that's it. And you know, I think what the American College represents, and I love hearing 2,800 hungry people to make, because at the end of the day, I will tell you with 100% certainty, and this was something that Tom taught me from an advisory perspective. I've always had that mantra of service, but never stop committing yourself to making your clients' lives better. Never. I mean, I
That's
was
we're
from the
we're in the
get-go.
service business. That's our job.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, and I mean that connects to the college's mission. I think, what I've heard from both of you over this podcast, I think connects so well to the college's mission. Every advisor is not a good advisor. I will be the first person to say that out there. We talk about the barrier to entry to be an advisor is low, very, very minimal.
A birth
The
date and a heart
clients
rate,
are
right?
Yeah, yeah, and the clients are clamoring. Consumers are clamoring for ways to draw distinction between advisors. That's what we at the college are trying to do. That's what you two do every day with your clients and consumers, and it all comes back to what you know. A member of my team says something that I take with me every single day is a lot of professionals in the service business are second question stupid. They can get through the first question, kind of BS their way through the prospecting meeting, and then it gets the brass tacks, and they have no idea how to implement what they said they could. So that's what the college is here for, to help more advisors have the competence and confidence to deliver with clarity.
I think that's a great place to end it.
Yeah.
We're already almost an hour into this. This was a good one, Jared. We should have had
I
you on
appreciate
earlier.
I appreciate both you guys. I mean, I think this conversation shows a lot of alignment between how we view the profession and we view it through the needs of the consumer, not through the needs of us. If like we deliver what we do is we're delivering for society.
You just said the needs of the consumer. The needs of the consumer comes through the advisor. And if you're a listener and you're like, oh, they're just talking about getting, designations. No, this is extremely important for you. And we are going to talk about the consumer side here at the end, but you're making a lifetime decision with potential, with your life savings on the line.
And your
And
Yeah,
that's
family's
what
legacy.
Right, your legacy, your life savings, your peace of mind, that all of that is taken care of. That's not a decision that you can make lightly. And that's why we had today's show was to educate you on knowing who needs to be in your corner. And to wrap it up, Jared, let's talk about that consumer side of this because it's not there to replace the advisor. It's to help educate you. Trust me, I mean, it's not, this isn't a one and done thing like Tommy's proven, but I think it's going to help the consumer get to that end game of asking the better question on how they should approach retirement, what they should do.
Yeah, absolutely, John. We have two ways of doing that. One is we actually have 3 consumer financial education programs. They're free. Anyone can go to theamericancollege.edu and take one of them, including one that's called the retirement course, which is all about the issues in retirement. Why do we offer them? Because we think a more educated client is a better client for the advisor. The second is our consumer awareness and engagement campaign. The college is making a multi-million-dollar, multi-year investment and going direct to the consumer to start informing and educating them that, like other maturing professions, medicine and law, that there are specialists, those with advanced education and competency in certain areas that tie to specific needs. And we kicked that off October 7th in New York City at NASDAQ. So we're only in month 2, but we're really excited of what we're seeing already in the data. But we know it's a it's a mid to long term slog with any of this awareness and advertising, but we think it's really mission aligned. If we believe a college educated advisor is a strong advisor and the designee believes that, like Tom, then their client should too. And so that's why we're going direct to consumer with the campaign.
And you can see
So
that
where can they
on the
find?
national stations.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can see it on, right now we're on television on all streaming platforms. So that's YouTube TV, Hulu, Paramount, Apple TV, CBS, NBC Digital. It also will stream on all financial websites like the Wall Street Journal, Investopedia, MarketWatch, CNBC, and then social media. Our goal is over these first 3 months, we'll have about 750 to 850,000 mass affluent plus households. That's, those with 100,000 plus of household income and $1 million plus in investable assets, that they will see this first wave of the campaign, and then wave 2 will launch right after tax season next year.
Wow, that is awesome. And, we thank you, Jared, for just coming on and sharing your knowledge and the huge service that the American College provides. And, I look forward to that tax class.
Yeah, absolutely.
Spending some of my money on college tuition all over again.
Yeah, there you
Yep.
go.
Hey,
Full
but we
circle,
always
Tom,
say,
full
Yeah,
circle.
right.
if we're taking a tax plan, you always got to bring it back to taxes. It's a tax deduction.
That's true.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Well, thank you both, guys. Appreciate the time.
Well, thank you very much, Jared. And that wraps up another episode of the Retire Happy podcast. And folks, we have a great way to end December. We're going to talk about, again, physical health and market health. So until the next time, folks, have a blessed and thankful Thanksgiving. And, we're thankful for guests like Jared, and I'm thankful for my friendship with you, Tommy. And until next time, folks, retire happy. Take care.
It's easy to get in touch with John and Thomas. If you're more on the West Coast, give John a call at 858-758-9889. That's 858-758-9889. Or go online to GoSecurus.com. That's GoSecurus.com. If you're more of an East Coaster, then call Thomas, 973-394-0623. That's 973-394-0623. And online at internationalfinancial.com. That's internationalfinancial.com. And you can, of course, always just check the description of today's show for all that contact information. Don't forget to subscribe and follow the podcast on your favorite apps, and we'll see you next time on the Retire Happy Podcast.
Investment advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, LLC, BCM, a registered investment advisor. BCM, Securus Financial, and International Financial Advisory Group are independent of each other. Insurance products and services are not offered through BCM, but are offered and sold through individually licensed and appointed agents. The opinions expressed by John Amarino, Thomas O'Connell, and guests on this show are their own, and are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. Investments involve risk, and unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Past performance cannot be used as an indicator to determine future results. Any strategies mentioned may not be suitable for everyone. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives, and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. Before acting on any information mentioned, please consult with a qualified tax or investment advisor to determine if it is suitable for your specific situation. This program is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information with regard to the subjects covered. Registered investment advisors and investment advisor representatives act as fiduciaries for all of our investment management clients. We have an obligation to act in the best interest of our clients and to make full disclosure of any conflicts of interest. Please refer to our firm brochure, the ADV 2A Item 4, for additional information.